one thing that wasn't expected happened.
U.S. airlines are closely following the investigation into the crash of a passenger jet off Indonesia today.
The plane was a new Boeing 737 MAX.
Out of millions of things they tested for, we unfortunately found one that wasn't.
Breaking news out of Ethiopia, where a plane went down just outside the capital, killing everyone on board.
The Boeing 737 MAX 8 is the same model involved in the Indonesian Lion Air jet crash in October.
No aircraft manufacturer gets a free disaster or two disasters when these crashes are preventable by long-established aerodynamic engineering standards.
The crisis surrounding the crashes of the Boeing 737 MAX 8 planes in Ethiopia and Indonesia has seized the world's attention and done something perhaps even more remarkable: unite Congress.
Do you think the FAA has the responsibility to tell these airlines that they cannot shortchange safety for profits?
As a passenger, I would certainly find it troubling if the captain is describing the training manual as, quote, inadequate and almost criminally insufficient.
This is a recent congressional hearing during which senators from both parties grilled this man, Dan Elwell, the acting Federal Aviation Administration chief, about the recent Boeing crashes.
Safety is at the core of the FAA's mission. It is our first priority.
Elwell testified about a wide range of issues, but the most serious questions concern the FAA's relationship with the industry it regulates.
I suppose that there's always a question of why we would have a private company certify their product.
And that's something many Americans might not know or appreciate. The federal agency in charge of making sure new planes are safe doesn't actually do those inspections anymore. Instead, it outsources certifications to the plane manufacturers themselves.
The U.S. government is not arm's length with these manufacturers. There's too much delegation of public responsibility for airline travel safety.
You might recognize this man. Ralph Nader is a former Green Party presidential candidate and prominent consumer advocate. Nader is why we have seatbelts and airbags in cars. He's also been sounding the alarm about what he sees as the cozy relationship between the FAA and aircraft manufacturers like Boeing for years. He even wrote a book about it in 1994.
It's a captive agency. It's captive by the airline industry and the aircraft manufacturers who swarm over it, who get their executives appointed as officials of the FAA. So this book is designed to encourage an attitude of prevention, of foreseeing, forestalling. Why wait for the crashes to occur?
Recently, the issue became more personal for Nader. His grandniece, Samia Rose Stumo, was killed in the 737 MAX crash in Ethiopia.
She was only 24, but in her short life, she had an advanced degree in global health. We'll never know how many lives she would have saved in a 50-year career.
We can trace the roots of the modern FAA back to a major change the agency instituted in 2005. Back then, the Bush administration loosened regulations to allow manufacturers to use their own employees to certify the safety of their planes. This was part of a cost-cutting initiative dubbed ODA, or the Organization Designation Authorization Program.
This cushy relationship between the FAA and Boeing has got to end, and that Congress has got to stand up and provide adequate budgets and adequate technical staff to do the job.
In a statement, the FAA said the agency has never allowed companies to police themselves or self-certify their aircraft. Before the ODA came into effect, the FAA would choose its own inspectors. Some of those inspectors may have worked for the manufacturer, but they were chosen and supervised by the FAA. Today, under the ODA system, Boeing employees certify the safety of Boeing's own planes. For Nader and the agency's critics, this is a clear conflict of interest. But for the FAA's defenders, these concerns are overblown.
In the certification process, the FAA is involved from start to finish. If you went out to Boeing or Airbus or anywhere where aircraft certification was underway, you would find FAA pilots, engineers, all part of the process working shoulder to shoulder. I don't think you could operate the airline industry or the commercial aircraft industry without it.
And that's something both sides can agree on. Today, the FAA simply cannot do all of these inspections because it doesn't have the manpower or the resources.
If we had no ODA It would require roughly 10,000 more employees and about $1.8 billion for our certification office in the FAA.
This would be a major increase from the FAA's 2019 budget of $239 million and 1,300 staff. It would also represent a significant change to the agency's marching orders, considering that for the past 15 years, Congress has asked the FAA to tighten its belt and deregulate.
Every decade or so, this catches the attention of folks who aren't in the aviation business. Congress, the press, your cranky uncle, they scratch their heads. What do you mean the government is working with the airlines? Aren't they supposed to be regulating those guys?
This is a speech that Elwell gave last year to an industry lobbying group.
I get it. I get that thinking, that thought process. But the relationship that exists between the FAA, ALPA, and the rest of the industry that we regulate is the driving force behind our unprecedented safety record.
And that is perhaps the FAA's best defense. Despite these recent crashes, modern air safety for large transport aircraft in America is better than ever.
Since 1997, the risk of a fatal commercial aviation accident in the United States has been cut by 94%. And in the past 10 years, we've experienced one commercial airline passenger fatality in the United States in over 90 million flights. That's a remarkable record.
So then what happened with these two flights? Since both investigations are still ongoing, it's too early to say. But former FAA head Babbitt thinks the answer is an uncomfortable one.
I'm not trying to be defensive of the FAA, but I would imagine there were probably more than 100,000 tests were done on this aircraft. And to have a shortcoming in one, that's one shortcoming too many. But out of the mass of literally and millions of permutations of what could happen, you know, with the old line, every now and then the holes in the Swiss cheese line up. And that's what happened.
But the agency's critics see things very differently. For them, the two recent crashes are further proof that deregulation has gotten out of control and that industry has effectively taken over the FAA. For Nader, a case in point is the man at the top, Dan Elwell.
Well, Elwell is part of the industry FAA turnstile. They go in, they go out.
The current acting FAA head has spent his career bouncing between government and industry.
Fortunately, he's on his way out. There's going to be a new FAA commissioner. The problem is he's from Delta, so here we go again.
Boeing is determined to salvage the 737 MAX 8, which is the fastest selling plane in the company's history. To that end, they are working on a software fix that they hope will get the MAX 8s back in the air flying again this summer. But the growing public scrutiny of the manufacturer could undermine that deadline and perhaps even Boeing's influence within the FAA. A recent Wall Street Journal investigation found that Boeing didn't share information about a problem with a cockpit safety alert system for about a year before the first MAX crash in Indonesia. That left not only the flying public in the dark, but also the FAA. It was only after the second accident in Ethiopia, nearly 5 months later, that Boeing became more forthcoming about the problem. Boeing said it operates in full accordance with all Federal Aviation Administration oversight requirements and processes. The long-standing collaborative engagement between the FAA, Boeing, its customers, and industry partners has created the safest transportation system in the world.